morning. Welcome to Chapter 1, Science and Sustainability. In this chapter, we're going to take a look at the introduction to environmental science. So environmental science is the study of how the natural world works and how the environment affects us, and how we actually affect our environment as we interact with it going on through time. So that's the definition of environmental science. If we take a look on this next page, we see highlighted on here in the figure up at the top, there's captions that go along with each of these renewable and non-renewable resources. So in the first two columns, what we have are our renewable resources, which means that they actually come back. They're not going to be depleted. The first one are things that can come back every day or almost every day. In the second column, we also see that these guys are, the exhaustible ones, going to come back, but it's going to take a little bit more time. So that's stuff like your fresh water. You're going to have to wait for the rainfall to come to produce more. Or cutting down a tree, you are going to have to wait maybe 20 years for that tree to grow back. It takes hundreds of years to replenish topsoil, which is something of concern too when we actually start to deplete and allow erosion to take care of topsoil. The non-renewable resources are stuff like fossil fuels, crude oil, natural gas, and coal. They are going to take millions of years and a lot of heat and a lot of pressure to form, so they're considered to be non-renewable. They won't be able to be accessed within our lifetime, so once they're gone and they can't be replaced anywhere. So make sure that you understand renewable and non-renewable resources because they're going to keep coming back this semester. Ecosystem services down here, figure 1.2 actually has some really good examples of ecosystem services. Please make sure you pay attention to the captions that go along with the figures. They're really important in this book. They can be quite helpful. So ecosystem services are anything that nature gives us as humans that can help us survive. So the air we breathe, or giving us trees that provide us lumber, or stuff that we can sell for monetary value. Services that will come back again and again and again. They weren't specifically built for us in mind, but they benefit us. And that even includes stuff like recreational and aesthetic values of nature. On this next page, we are going to start to see how changes to the human population occurred over time. So there are two big booms in the human population. We see one right around here, the agricultural revolution, and we see another one on the back end for the industrial revolution. So there are two big ones. The agricultural revolution, when we stopped doing the hunting and gathering type lifestyles, happened about 10,000 years ago. Then we go a little bit further into the industrial revolution in the mid 1700s, and that caused rapid growth in the human population due to the fact that we were able to make more goods quicker. We had an increase in our foods, better healthcare, medicines. So that spike did occur because of that, and basically we had a drop in death rate and an increase in our birth rate. And when that happens, we start to see the population growth. Right here is our ecological footprint, so you might want to take a look at that as well as the lovely little diagram that goes along with it. Again, understanding the captions is super important. So much information you need for the exams and the AP tests can be found in those figures and captions. So the concept of the ecological footprint, which is basically the amount of land and water needed to support a person with the things that they eat, the clothes that they wear, the garbage that they produce, the water that they need, everything else is discussed right in here. So thinking about your ecological footprint, how much land is needed to grow all of the foods that you eat in a given year or lifetime, anything else along that lines. Okay, on page 6. Page 6 is taking a look at that increase in population growth. We do have a biocapacity, bio meaning life, capacity meaning the maximum amount of life that can be, held on that earth. After we've reached that, we actually are doing something called overshoot. So overshoot is using resources faster than they can actually be replenished, so living beyond your means. Right now, with our ecological footprint in the world, we are living outside of our means. The resources that we need to keep us alive, we're actually consuming faster than they're able to replenish. And therefore, we're overshooting all of our resources, and that can cause great problems later on. So make sure you take a look at the overshoot and figure out how we live outside of our means. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So the cool thing about environmental science is it's not just science. We do incorporate quite a bit of other areas, not just environmental, natural sciences, a lot of social sciences. So if you like geography, if you like your APUSH, we do get into quite a bit of that. There's some big differences though between an environmental scientist and an environmentalist. An environmental scientist in environmental science is the study of the actual science behind what's happening in Earth and the interactions that we have. So we're going to do a ton of science this year. An environmentalist is doing more activist work. They want to be able to protect things, and they want to make sure that they are creating change. So we'll get a little bit into that when we make some projects and stuff like that. But for the most part, we will be looking at the science behind what's going on Earth. Okay. Make sure you have an idea of what's happening on Easter Island. This is a pretty interesting thing, and it's actually changed throughout the years. There used to only be one theory about what happened to the population on Easter Island, but now there are actually two. So after we take a look at the fossil record, we find that they used palm trees that are no longer on the island anymore. We see records of other organisms that don't exist anymore, but did in the past, and that there was remnants that the population was pretty large at one time on Easter Island. So the interesting thing, they've switched the books to include both theories now of what happened to the population on Easter Island. Both theories we'll take a look at, they apply to sustainability. So the very first one, they believed that all of the individuals on the island started to create more of a deforestation process. To build those lovely little statues that we think of when we think of Easter Island, they had to move them around, heavy stone. So they cut down a lot of the trees to be able to roll these stones around the island, place them up, clear it out so that people could see them. Well, in doing so, when you clear out all the trees, there's no more root system. That root system starts to disappear. We start to see more soil get eroded away, kind of like what happened in the Dust Bowl. And once that soil is gone, you're not really able to grow a lot of crops. Not a lot of crops means not a lot of food, so you have famine. And essentially, the Easter Island population turned to killing each other, cannibalism, to be able to survive. The second theory, which is newer theory, is based on evidence that we have. They believe that Polynesians landed on Easter Island from other islands, and when they came, they brought rats and disease with them on their boats. Those rats were invasive to that island, and the diseases as well, so they wiped out a lot of the food supply. However, we see some facts and ideas that the population started to rebound and live a little bit more sustainably, whether that's eating the rats, what have you. But unfortunately, the population started to become a lot more decimated when European sailors came to the island for slave trade, as well as when they did so, they brought over their European diseases that the natives had not been used to seeing, and unfortunately that wiped out the population. So you have two different theories that go along with Easter Island. So make sure you take a look at Easter Island and how it fits in with sustainability. Okay, scientific method and your lovely CERs. This year, CERs are not going away. College Board is actually looking a lot more into doing claims, evidence, and supporting that with reasoning. Are you able to look at something, pull out the important facts, and come up with your understanding and explain yourself? So we will be doing quite a bit of CERs. So remember, the C is for claim, the E is for evidence, and the R is for reasoning. Now again, another review should be your scientific method. Make sure you take a look at all these bold words so that you understand again what they are. But one of the big things, the controls, remember your independent is what I control, so that's what you're changing. The dependent variables are what's being measured. Any control variables are kept constant in your situation. Remember, we only want to change one variable at a time. And we're going to be doing quite a bit of these types of experiments. Differences with the experiments we're doing, we have manipulative and natural experiments. Manipulative experiments are ones that we can actually change a variable and do a scientific experiment, collect data, typically what you would picture in a science classroom. Natural experiments, which we'll do a few, are ones that we go outside and we observe the natural world around us. So we will be doing both natural as well as manipulative experiments in this class. The next couple pages go through graphs and everything else. Don't forget the x-axis is typically your, actually here, I wrote it down for you, is typically your independent variable. The y-axis is typically your dependent variable. Okay, another quick review for you, the differences of a theory. A theory is anything that's considered to be widely accepted. It's gone through testing over and over again with the same repeated cause and effect explanation. So we look at theories kind of as the be-all end-all, which really isn't true. Science is constantly going on around us. We're constantly studying things and finding out that what we once believed was true, maybe we've got some data that's, disproving that. When that occurs, we call that a paradigm shift. Stuff that we thought was actually, solid truth and proof back in the day, maybe doesn't really work out like that anymore. So we see a change in the paradigm of science, and this happened back in the day with, believing Earth was flat. And then when we sailed, we didn't fall off the edge, so that was disproven. Oh, right, sustainability. Sustainability is just using your resources without depleting them. So that leaves behind an ecosystem that's true for the future generation. The goal is to not stop using resources, but figuring out a way to use them in a better fashion so that they are available later on. And that's the big thing with sustainability. Are you living sustainably? Are you throwing out too much garbage in your house and wasting? That's a problem. And that's it for this first chapter.